Hi everyone, welcome to Therapy. I'm Michelle. Oftentimes people tell me that they feel like their emotions go from 0 to 60 in almost no time whatsoever, and they don't really know how it happened or why it happened. And maybe they know like the last thing or the thing maybe right before it that sort of caused this kind of crisis feeling to happen. But oftentimes there's this feeling in this sense that it didn't really arise from anything previous to right before our overreaction. And one of the ways that we can prevent crisis, overwhelm, reactivity is to increase our awareness of what's happening to us on a moment-by-moment basis so that we can intervene with ourselves, take care of ourselves when the anxiety, fear, upset is still at a fairly low level, and prevent it from getting sort of out of control where we feel that we can't then take care of ourselves or deal with what's going on. And one of the ways to think about doing that is to envision this window of tolerance. And oftentimes I'll kind of draw it for clients. This window of tolerance idea is how you might visualize and think about the experience of being able to deal with issues as they come up, deal with feelings as they start to get more intense, deal with interactions that are challenging. When we're in this window of tolerance, we might notice that we go from, say, kind of calm to getting a little anxious, a little upset. It might get higher, but when we're here, we can problem solve. We're still in that part of our brain that's a problem solving part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And we can a little easier figure out how to calm down, how to get through the situation in a way that fits our own wise mind values. But when we get up out of the window, say, of intense anxiety, intense rage, intense sadness, we call that hyper arousal. So hyper is more than, and the arousal is, the experience of kind of a physical sort of experience and being really uptight and upset. So when we're in hyper arousal, it's really hard for us to intervene with ourselves. It's really, really hard because we're out of our prefrontal cortex. We're more into our emotion part of our brain. And this is where we may do things that are harmful to ourselves, harmful to other people. We may have behaviors that are harder, to fix later. We may start to go into thoughts that are very, very irrational because we're not in our rational brain. So we would like to, as much as we can, avoid getting up out of the window of tolerance and into hyper arousal. The other place we try to avoid getting to is hypo arousal. So hypo, underneath, less than. So it's the arousal that is not our best place to be. Hypo arousal means that we're shut down. Some people get really spacey, really sleepy, even if they're, if they've gotten plenty of sleep. They start to really numb out. And that's another self-protective mechanism that comes into play when our brain starts to sense we're in danger. So we may go to hyperarousal, kind of fight or flight, or we may go to hypoarousal, which we also kind of call the freeze. And these are places that are normal to go to. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the person, but the more we're up here or down here, the less we're really living the true, grounded, best life that we want to live for ourselves. So we'd like to stay in this window of tolerance where when challenges come up, we can meet them and we can face them with our strength and our courage and our rational thinking. So I wanted to introduce this window of tolerance because it's just another tool to use when you think about becoming intentional about your mental and emotional self-care. And in some other videos, I'm going to talk about how do we intervene when we start to tune in, check in, and notice, wow, our anxiety level went from 2 to 7 in this past hour. Okay, that's interesting. I need to do something here to bring it back down. Or I notice that I'm really zoning out, really spacing out. I maybe even have this experience of having lost some time. I don't know what happened. And that's a hypo arousal. We want to be able to check in and notice that that's going on so we can, again, intervene and keep ourselves really present. We want to stay as much as possible in the present moment. So videos that will be related to this will be videos on all different kinds of grounding, and there are many different ways to start grounding ourselves. So look for those if you're interested in ways to stay in this window. And this is also going to be just related to any video about intentionality, any video about staying in our rational and best emotional type of space, the place that we want to be. So again, this is just another visual and idea to keep in mind when you're thinking about reducing reactivity, reducing overwhelm, and staying in the place that you want to be in your brain, body, mind. So thank you so much for watching today. Please leave any questions you may have about the window of tolerance in the comments. I'd be happy to answer those. And I hope you have a wonderful day today. Take care. Be well.